number F3, discuss and consider defining boarding houses and authorizing staff to hold public forums to discuss the issue prior to bringing back an ordinance.
Mayor, Council, Howdy Lisenby, Assistant City Manager, thank you for the opportunity to present tonight. Holly and I are going to tag team this one. And so when it gets, I'm going to give you all of the knowledge that I possess, and then I'm going to tap out and let Holly be the hero and bring it home. But what we want to talk about tonight, and actually just trying to get some direction from council on whether this is an issue that you want staff to spend some time on, getting some feedback from the community. Our goal is to develop a clear strategy to reduce the impact of boarding houses and lodging houses on the surrounding neighbors. And so we recognize that within the community, these are occurring and they're having an impact on their neighbors. And so we want to, as a local government, try to develop some strategies to minimize the impact on the neighbors. At issues, our current ordinance language does not give staff the tools to effectively address the impact. But we want to conduct some discussions with stakeholders in the community to find strategies that work, strategies that the community can embrace. And right now we are limiting the focus of the discussion to sanitation, parking, and fire safety. I do want to note for the public, those that are here and those that are not here, staff is not looking to stop boarding houses and lodging houses. They're allowable uses, specifically in R2, but we do have some of them that are happening in R1 areas as well. We're not trying to stop it, we're just trying to address the impact they have on the surrounding neighborhood. For definitions, a boarding house is basically a building or a single family structure that is used for lodging for compensation. It may have meals, it may not have meals, but it's not occupied as a single family unit. A lodging house is different in that at least one of the occupants is a primary residence. So if you'll think of it as Bob owns a house, but he doesn't live there, and he rents rooms out to people, that's a boarding house. If Bob owns the house and he lives there, and then he rents the extra bedrooms out, that's a lodging house. And so that's just the distinction between the two. Both are allowed, but both of them are occurring in several different zones around the community. Our primary concern in these three areas, one was sanitation. In a single family neighborhood right now, our dumpster density is really looking to have 3 to 4 houses share a dumpster, usually in a common alley. When you have one of those homes used in a multi-user, multi-occupant fashion, they generate more solid waste than the traditional single family home does. What that then means is the dumpster fills up much faster, and the routes that we're running to get those dumpsters are not frequently dumped enough. And so it ends up with dumpsters being full to overflowing, creating unsanitary conditions, and neighbors can't dispose of their waste. And so what we find is that we come in on one day and dump that unit. By the end of the day or the next day, it's completely full again. And so we need some kind of tools to address the sanitation issue by either adding additional dumpsters or changing the way that they are handled. Parking is a concern, both for the neighborhood and for the occupants, because generally it creates unsafe conditions for entering traffic, for getting out of traffic. If these neighborhoods have kids that like to play in the yard, drivers coming through the neighborhood can't see clearly the pedestrians, they can't see the children, and so we're worried about the parking impact on the neighborhood. And finally, fire safety. Generally, multifamily units are more of a commercial construction, and so there are things factored into fire safety, fire escapes, fire extinguishers, fire alarms, and some of these single-family residences weren't designed with that level of fire safety in mind. We have seen that someone will actually modify the internal structure of the home and eliminate fire exits. And so it's a concern for the occupants, it's a concern for the neighbors, because if one house catches on fire, it puts all the other homes in that neighborhood in risk as well. And so what we would like to do, and we're asking for direction from council, is we would have a series of targeted stakeholder meetings. What I mean there is not traditional town hall meetings. Obviously, the meetings are open to the public, but we want to identify neighborhoods where these homes are occurring. We want to hear from those affected parties in the neighborhoods, both the owners of the boarding homes, the occupants of the boarding homes, and the neighbors. Because we feel like if we can get everybody at the table and get feedback from the community, that we'll be able to come up with better strategies. We would also like to see if council is interested. From my experience, when you do these kind of stakeholder meetings, the community lends it more credibility if someone from the council participates. And so if someone on council is interested in this issue, we can't have a quorum at every meeting, but we would like to have 1 or 2 council members at these meetings if possible, just so that you can hear and help us develop what these strategies are going to be. And then at the end of this process, there will be ordinance amendments to give staff the tools to try to minimize the impact in these neighborhoods. And so I'm gonna switch over and let Holly walk you through just some pictures that kind of give you a general sense of what we're talking about.
Mayor, Council, I put together a series of pictures throughout our community. I didn't want to, you're gonna notice that they're not gonna have any directions on them, they're just gonna be the photographs. Just to give you an idea of the impact that we currently have in our community. This is just happens to be one of the trash cans, but this is throughout the entire community that we're running into. People are calling us, primarily Public Works, but they're calling us, and we're asking them to keep the trash on their site until the dumpster is empty. These photographs you're gonna see, the next series of photographs are basically showing how many vehicles are actually parked in some of these residences. We usually cannot catch most of these parking until around 6:30, 7 o'clock at night. That's when I guess everybody is coming back from their shifts. But they are all over the community.
It's my house, and that's just my wife's car.
I was waiting for you to say those were all family members.
My cousin, my first cousin on my mother's side.
And one of the things that sometimes people don't connect the parking to the fire safety. But if you have a single family residential development with this many vehicles, and there is a medical emergency or a fire emergency, it's gonna limit the ability of emergency response to get on scene and effectively get into the structure and fight a fire or deal with a medical emergency. And so parking is impacting multiple different areas.
On that picture, I know Odessa, and we did it in Fort Scott, it would not allow parking on the yards.
Right.
Yeah.
And currently, we do not have something that we can utilize as far as addressing that in code. And that was the purpose of the other slides, was to indicate that.
But don't we have something about not parking in the yards?
No, ma'am.
Not at all? I thought
We, yes,
We
several
addressed it
people have
It
told me.
had something to do with parking. I think what we had was no company vehicles parking in residential.
Well, actually,
There may be something on the books, but we're having trouble
we've been
using it as an
having-
enforcement tool, so I think we need to revisit it.
I was trying to pull that on Eddie, and there was a pickup parked up on the sidewalk, so it's really hard to see around that
Yes.
vehicle.
There's multiple issues.
But that should be considered to me as part of the yard.
It varies
Anything off the street.
if you're parking on a public way, it becomes a police matter. And, parking in the yard, on the other hand, we don't, have been unable to find anything. And I've been searching, I thought we did, but I'm not able to find anything.
I don't know if that's last year or the year before we discussed, I know we discussed it,
What we discussed was
company trucks,
company trucks, no company vehicles parking in.
but we never made an ordinance, we just.
No, I think we did come up with something.
We do.
Okay, Sheriff, you know what it is?
Yeah.
I can't exactly remember when it was made, but, for a while, before we had code enforcement, we were the ones enforcing it. It's, they can't park, in the front yard unless it's paved or it had gravel. They can't park, in any alleyway or block a sidewalk, but we do have.
And we need to get with,
Okay, so, right, what we have is parking on unapproved surfaces. But it was addressing, the ordinance that we had that's been amended was addressing the commercial parking and the RVs. But I'll happily look at it again to see if I missed anything.
It will be part of these discussions.
yes, somebody on Facebook today, apparently y'all have given somebody a ticket or a warning for parking an RV in the street, and they're,
We have this one.
somebody told them, well, hook up your truck to it and just say that you're moving it, but it's just there temporarily. You know, and then the other, and then,
She came to me and told me about it. She goes, he already put it on Facebook, and I was like, that's all right.
Yeah.
Someone showed it to me.
I'm familiar with it, yes.
Okay.
We're on it.
And the other one that I've seen on Facebook is people advertising for boarding, you know, all rig, all company workers only, for rooms at the house, you know, so. Sorry, go ahead.
So as part of the discussion, I mean, and I don't know if it depends on the number of bedrooms or square footage, is there a limit on how many can actually live in a house? On a boarding or lodging? Or is
So-
that part of the discussion?
Well, actually, lodging does allow a lot more versus your boarding. But these, again, you know, specifically for what we're wanting to address, we're wanting to address the sanitation, fire, and parking first. And I think that it'll pull everything else in. But the sanitation and fire and parking are the most important areas that we need to address. And I think by addressing them should inadvertently address how many people are actually there.
Is there a square feet ratio to people as far as fire? How many people you can put in a room?
I don't know off the top of my head, but we'd have to get with fire marshal unless you.
So on lodging, building code, actually, if the person is living in the house, he can rent up to 3 times, for each, he can place 3 times the amount of people in a bedroom, which it's a single bedroom, more than likely it's just 3 people per bedroom legally.
Well, there's some kind of a
So-
fire code that says how many people could be in a room a certain size.
And also fire exits for those.
Yeah.
So I do know that on our,
Do we know what that is?
well, I do know, I can
Off the
only,
top of my head, no.
I can only respond to, what the rule of thumb is for our, what do you call those things? My brain went blank. It's a single room, all-in-one unit,
Studio apartment.
like a studio apartment. So 220 square feet is the minimum for that, but for every additional person, it's an additional 50 square feet. So, again, I would have to,
Well, let's say this room,
Filled
for
with-
instance, how many people can be put in here before it's a fire hazard
right,
to have more than that in here?
and so the fire marshal would set the occupancy load based on the occupancy.
You'd also wanna address the issue of paying hot taxes if you're sub-renting rooms.
I looked into that until under lodging, and it didn't, everything was referencing hotel and motel.
Right,
In
but
our
if you're
current
using
ordinance.
your home basically as a hotel with short-term rentals, I think that would be another thing we would wanna look at for a new ordinance.
And I think that would be the
Over 30
difference,
days.
what their lease is it, you know, per day, per week, or per month?
We'll definitely take that into consideration.
Yes,
Cause I've heard, this is just secondhand news, really, information that there's one place where there's got people sleeping in the kitchens,
yes,
sleeping bags
actually,
and air mattresses.
I got people sleeping in the pickups.
Yeah, so, but I mean, you know, it's like, when they get up in the morning, they gotta pick up their bedroll and open the kitchen for people to use, and then at night, here they go again, it's like,
That's
a fire hazard.
yeah, you know, that's exactly right, our concern is the community health and safety, okay? We appreciate that the community wants to be able to make a nice living, but not at the expense and health of the people that are staying in these properties. They stay in the garages, they stay in kitchens with gas stoves, all of that's illegal, you know, but if we don't have anything in place, we cannot move forward and attempt to address it. So, yeah, that's correct.
It's also hard to monitor it.
It's very hard to monitor. If we have something in place though, you know, we start the process now, we should be able to get something going and, start enacting it.
So what did we start, the landlord?
Mhm.
I wanna start first. We were trying to address the landlords taking advantage of people not taking care of their properties, you know, just rent them, they don't fix them up, they don't take care of their utilities or anything like that, you know, and
No improvements.
no improvements, and we would tell them, okay, before you rent it out, it needs to be inspected by the city again. Are we doing still that or not doing it?
We never adopted that.
That discussion came up, but it got voted down. There was a lot of discussion on, there's a lot of discussion on that, and it came down to, the individual property owner rights.
Mhm.
And I believe, if memory serves, it's going back about 2 years, that it died for lack of motion.
Well, it's like this guy
It's been
sleeping in his
discussed.
kitchen. You know, what, you can make all the ordinances you wanna do, but how are you gonna enforce something like that?
Exactly, how are you
I
gonna
mean,
monitor?
we don't need to be making ordinances that we can't enforce. And, you know, the guy sleeping in his pickup, sleeping on the floor in the kitchen, probably step up for him.
Yeah.
Close to the refrigerator, yeah.
So we're
And we are sensitive to the fact that we're a little bit shy of housing.
Mhm.
And so, as was referred to, we're not trying to eliminate this, we just wanna make it safe for the people that are there and for their neighbors that are also impacted by this.
They're gonna need an alternative to, you know, as far as this parking and stuff like that, they're gonna have to park somewhere. What's their alternative? Just have a shuttle somewhere to a parking lot, or?
That's what the discussions.
I don't know,
That's-
we have to have these discussions to see if there is a solution for
Kinda
it.
like when we said you can't park your 18-wheeler in a residential area, I mean, they've gotta find some place to park it. And, you know, some of these residential areas, I don't even know how people get out of their driveway. Where they can't see a car come in until they're out in the middle of the street, because it's lined on both sides, and it's just bumper to bumper. And, I mean, again, it comes back to children, you know, stepping out, or you just trying to get out of your driveway every morning. That it's dangerous.
And that's true, because like that bottom picture, that house is on Plum Street, right? I live right by that. And there's a bunch of houses on Plum Street that are and going to work in the morning for me is so hard,
It
because
is.
all those cars that are in the yards and in the street,
Our 2-lane streets.
I'm taking a risk trying to cross to get over to my office 3 blocks away.
It's like that throughout the entire city. It really is, depending on what time of day.
But that's one of the worst, Plum Street, on that section is one of the worst ones, because of those
We
houses.
live right around there.
Well, one of the things I think we need to keep in mind is that, you know, we represent them guys sleeping on the kitchen and the floor too. We don't just represent the people who've been here long term, we represent everybody that's here, and we need to address their needs as well.
That's why we want them involved in these meetings, so that we can hear from them, work with them to try to come up with good common solutions.
So, I think we all recognize it as an issue, whether you think it's good or bad or whatever. So what we're asking is for permission to have some public forums and start working on an ordinance. If that's something that you feel staff should be spending time on.
And like you said, you know, for us to attend also, so we can ask questions and we can hopefully answer questions as well, you know, because, and I commend you for doing this, because you're seeking their input before we trust anything,
Yeah.
you know, without really looking at it or investigating
So getting
it,
all
searching.
perspectives.
Yes, ma'am.
You know, their first question is gonna be, what do you want me to do? What do you want me to do?
Mhm.
I'm open to suggestions, you know, what do you want me to do? Well, solution is what we need to be coming up with. Everybody can see the problem,
Mhm.
but we need to come up with solutions.
That's exactly right, we do. But we need to take the health and safety is serious. I mean, we take care of each neighbor.
There's like the dumpster issue, I think we discussed it, or somebody brought it up. well, designate a dumpster just for them, but how are you gonna monitor
Yeah,
that?
you,
You can't.
yeah.
The dumpster police.
So,
Whole new force.
so I will say, I will follow or close with, what you mentioned a moment ago about people sleeping in kitchens and in trucks, or in homes that are not safe. These people actually will call us. I just ask them when they're moving and call me over there so that I can put a do not enter on it. At that time, we can then address it. Those moments are few and far between, very few and far between. I probably had 2 last year and 1 the year before. So they don't come up that often because people, and what they're paying for, it's horrendous that they're in that position. And so,
So, once again, you know, that's not a solution.
it's not a solution, but it's a
Nobody forced them
reason to
into there,
move
they were
forward.
probably anxious to get it, you know?
Yeah, they are, and I'm anxious to see them find something better when they call me.
Well, that's
Like I
what we
said,
need,
it's not-
that's what we need to come up with, that is something better,
It's-
you know? You know,
Yes,
we
I agree.
put these ordinances in, now we've kicked them out in the street, we haven't helped anybody.
Well, and as I said at the beginning, right now, we're not trying to stop this from happening. We're just trying to find effective strategies to minimize the impact. I don't wanna stop Bob from using his house to provide housing to people who need it. I just don't want it done in a way that jeopardizes the fire safety of the neighborhood or the sanitation of the neighborhood. There's got to be a solution out there.
Well, that's what we need to be looking for.
We gotta find solutions.
Other communities have addressed this, we could look at some other ordinances other communities use. Let's all look at them.
Other communities have, Midland, I believe, Gary and I have looked at this several times, and I believe they maxed out, the maximum, volume of people were 6, is it 6 in the homes? So it is there is a reasonable solution, we just want to start moving forward with it. We have been looking at it for a while.
But I guess whatever number you put, even 6, if each one each one of those individual persons has a vehicle,
Right.
you still got a parking problem.
So, right, that's not the end all be all, but
Yes,
that's
ma'am.
what we have
No, I
been
know.
looking at, what's out there, try not to have to reinvent the wheel completely.
And you know, they're fortunate, because staying at a hotel is what, $300 to $400 a night, and,
Yes.
you know, some of these companies do pay per diem. People are wanting to make money, you know, you have a home here that you can spare for rent, you know, you gotta make money right now, and
I would speculate that the examples that we're seeing right now are temporary solutions to a housing problem. I don't believe that's gonna happen for another 10 years. But between now and whenever other options do come around, we have to recognize the need for the housing, the property owner's rights, but also the responsibility for safety of the entire neighborhood. So, thank you, and we'll let you know as we move forward and have some of these meetings.
Good luck.
It's skill.
Does that mean
It will
you're
be
not
fun.
volunteering to do
I have no problem, I'll show up, we can rotate. Yeah, we should
Thank you.
rotate. Yeah, rotate. We can have 2 at a time. Yeah.
Thank you. Oh, actually. Item,
I'm gonna make a motion that we authorize staff to hold public forum and discuss action to bring back an ordinance, finding boarding houses.
I have a motion by Councilman Arona, a second by Councilman Ornelas to authorize staff to hold public forums, to discuss combining boarding houses before bringing back an ordinance. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Let the record show the motion carried.